friends and family as well. So today's topic is, are we making kids that are non-resilient? Now, I totally get that this could be quite a controversial topic, so I always add this disclaimer that I am definitely not a kids expert. I'm a clinical psychologist. I didn't specialize in kids, but of course I have an interest in resilience and anything that is going to make kids more resilient. Plus, I'm a mum as well, so all of the things I'm going to talk about I've definitely done, and so we are all in this together. Hey, Sarah. So basically, I was reading about the survey on the weekend where they surveyed 1,600 Aussie school kids ranging from year 4 up to year 12. And what this survey found, quite astonishingly, is that over half of them all lacked skills in how to cope with life's difficulties that they may face. So some examples were things like bullying, sexual type stuff, relationship conflict, parental separation, grades, what else did I write here? Illness, things like that. So over half of them lacked the skills to deal with that. And I just found like that is huge. You know, if our kids can't deal with the stuff that they're facing in childhood, how the heck are they going to deal with the stuff that they have to face in adulthood? Not at all to minimize the incredible, quite intense things that they have to go through in their childhood, especially these days. I think kids these days have a really particularly difficult set of difficulties that they have to deal with that perhaps we didn't have to deal with quite as much, like, having access to their friends and not so friendly people, 24 hours a day through the internet and the games they play. They can never escape. If they're being bullied, then they're going to continue to be bullied or treated badly in their very own bedrooms, which is really, really sad and so insidious and hard to stop. The 24-hour news cycle, we don't have it on at our house much, but a lot of people do, access to 24-hour news constantly, but of course through the internet as well that they can access. More pressures at school than ever before. Another one is like chronic illnesses, not so much that they are dealing with, but most people these days as adults are dealing with some kind of chronic issue in their health. And so they are privy to that as well and exposed to that. Plus, of course, living in these times with a pandemic. So, they have so many more difficulties or different difficulties that we had to deal with, but those are not reasons to kind of like rest on our laurels and kind of use as an excuse for why they're not resilient. These are absolute reasons why we need to focus even more on getting them up to speed with their resilience, because resilient kids equals resilient adults, right? So resilience is the ability to bounce back, of course, when chips are down. But I feel like it's more than that. It's looking at difficulties with that growth mindset. So looking at difficulties as an opportunity to grow from it and learn from it, so that then they can lay down some incredible skills so that when they face that difficulty again in the future in some way, they deal with it much better. So can you guys remember saying things like, it's not fair in your childhood, and one of your parents may be saying, well, life's not fair. So, we were kind of given that kind of tough love scenario that I think kids aren't given as much these days. I definitely feel like parents are, including myself, are a lot more overprotective with very loving intent than perhaps they were in our day, growing up in the 70s and 80s, even maybe the 90s. The whole term helicopter parent is very, is a popular term these days. The whole thing that, everybody wins, not actually, pointing out a winner in lots of different situations at sport or school, kids being driven everywhere, having to know exactly where your kids are at every second. It definitely does foster a sense that kids, perhaps kind of, can't be trusted to deal with their own emotional world or their own safety even. But then I also feel like boundaries are quite blurred these days. So yes, there's some overprotection going on, but also kids are exposed to so much more realness from their parents than ever before. I know that I really try to be an authentic mum and don't kind of cushion them too much from stuff that goes on. But, as a result, sometimes, we argue about money or about, different things in front of the kids and they hear it. Kids are allowed to go to funerals these days, which back in the day they weren't allowed to, and I totally agree they need to go. But, they go and visit sick relatives on their deathbed. What are some other examples? Just parents sharing their worries with their kids. So on the one hand, there's this overprotection, but on the other hand, these really blurred boundaries. So, kids are kind of questioning, like, is the world safe or good or bad? I don't really know. It's kind of these confusing messages. So something I want to share with you, which I think highlights this really beautifully, is a few months ago, I let the boys walk over to their soccer training on a Monday and a Wednesday night from CrossFit, where I do that as well. So it's only like a 3-minute walk. So we get ready at CrossFit. I stay there, do the class, they walk to soccer training. So that's been going on for a while. It's light. But then this one particular day, I said, well, why don't you come back to me so I can actually finish my class, do my stretching. So you walk back to me after soccer training. At this point, it was going to be dark, like about 5:30 p.m. Anyway, they never showed. So I kind of, drove to the soccer field, spoke to the coach. No, he said they've left. They walked off that way, which was the total opposite direction of where they needed to walk. So I was like, okay, so maybe they've come back to CrossFit, but a weird random way. So I went back to CrossFit, not there. So anyway, I started panicking. I basically started thinking my kids have been kidnapped. I jumped to that quite quickly. And I thought the one time I let them, have a little bit of freedom, they frickin' get kidnapped. So I had all these people out looking for them for about 5-10 minutes. It was just hell, as I'm sure, you guys can all relate in some way. Anyway, I guiltily rang my hubby just to basically say I've lost the twins. And he said, no, Jen, they're here. I picked them up. Didn't you get my text? I finished work early. I came and got them. They're in the bath. So the whole time while I was thinking they'd been kidnapped, they were in a bubble bath relaxing. And so, what I could have taken from that is, I definitely can't give them freedom anymore, if this is going to happen. But I I grew through it, and I decided that it was more about hubbies and my communication that actually needed solving, not letting them have that freedom, right? So, if we can't give our kids that freedom, how are we going to get them more resilient? Well, the good thing is that it's not really about freedom. Helping kids get more resilient, I'm learning, is actually more about getting them to feel positive emotions most of the time. How cool is that? That's easy to do, right? It's not about necessarily getting them to do this or getting them to do that. It's just helping them to feel more positive most of the time. And so there's an actual book called The Resilience Project. I'm sure you guys have seen it. And they've developed a little framework called GEM. So it's basically gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. So I'll just quickly go through them. So these are some things you can do with your kids to make them more resilient. So gratitude, when they face adversity, it's getting them to actually pick out aspects of that situation that they can feel grateful for. For example, if they were bullied at school today in the playground, ask them, what's something that you can be grateful for that came out of that? And they might point out that they had some kindness from one of the teachers that looked after them. So what gratitude does is it rewires the brain to scan the world for positive things that are happening. So you can do that with those types of scenarios, like ask them to point out something to be grateful for when they face a difficulty, or it's actually better to build it into a daily habit. So every night around the dinner table, get them to talk about, 1 to 3 things that they're grateful for today and make it a habit. The second one is empathy. So every time that we are kind and compassionate to someone, oxytocin gets released into, from our brain, and it makes us, that's a feel-good chemical. It makes us feel good every time we're kind, right? So I like to do the pay it forward exercise. So, getting the kids to do something kind for someone If they see someone struggling with carrying their bag or something at school, kind of help them pick it up, or just doing something for another human. And they kind of learn that the world is actually full of really nice people, including themselves, and that actually makes them feel more positive and like the world is just a nicer place. And the third one is, of course, mindfulness. You've heard it 1,000 times, but it's an important thing to do. So mindfulness helps us really appreciate the little things in life when the world can seem quite scary or full of pressure. It's just about slowing down and noticing something nice that's around us or good. It can help really reduce anxiety and stress and help increase focus. So an exercise there is mindful eating. So around the dinner table, actually get everyone to be quiet and then just get them to really slowly eat their food and really start, first of all, look at what's on their plate, get them to describe what's on their plate, get them to taste it or smell it first and get them to describe what it all smells like, get them to slowly taste it and describe that. And that helps them kind of slow down and really appreciate that meal. Of course, things like smelling the roses when you're out walking, get them to notice different flowers or different trees or birds or animals. We like to spot cats. Or, of course, mindful coloring. So mindfulness really fosters, more positive emotions, which we know creates more resilience in kids. So that's GEM. Gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. Maybe there's some things that you can practice with your kids today. And just remember that our role as parents isn't to pave this beautifully clear way for them, free of obstacles, but it's more to help them build some resilience so that when they face these obstacles, they can go around them or through them or across them with a lot more ease and get life back on track so that they don't fall off for too long before they come back. And there's also an app as well called the Resilience Project. So it actually gets you to do that GEM, gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness every day. And you can get kids to do it as well. So download the app. It's under $5, so I think it's worth it. All right, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your feedback, especially Kylie for your comment. I will go back and read that. That's so helpful. And have an amazing week. And I will see you next week, if not before. Bye, guys.